All praise and great glory to the mighty Most High alone, the existing one and only one of our fathers. Shalom, Israel, and to the stranger that is amongst us. This is your Brother Deshaun, coming at you one more again with another lesson. Well, actually, this is in reference to Matthew 5:24. Now, before all the time travelers that went back in time and figured out what books we are supposed to read, jump on here and start critiquing me on what the scriptures really are. The scriptures are common sense. The scriptures make sense. When the so-called New Testament adds up with the Torah, because we have to remember 1 Maccabees chapter 3 verse 48, where the heathen laid open the book of the law and they sought to change the likeness of their images and add and subtract. And for some, Matthew 5:24 is so hard to understand because a lot of us want to hold on to our resentments instead of getting it out, hashing it out, and leaving it alone. Getting right, getting clean before the Most High in humbleness and meekness, and going to leave your presence at the altar. It's a little story about my past with a typical woman, with a woman that I knew, that I still at times have in contact. It's a blessing because I was able to get out of myself, and no matter how she took it, if my apology was not to her liking or whatever, it was still my responsibility to do so. Because the only wrong way to make an apology or to make amends is to not do them. All praise to the Most High. And before I go any further, my last lesson wasn't to slander Rap the News' son. I vented a little bit. I don't see nothing wrong with that. And I said I didn't like the admonishment. But sometimes, even though we feel like we rather eat dog shit through a knit needle, we suck up how we feel about the situation, and we actually hear what the other person has to say. We actually take other people's feelings and how they are about a situation into consideration, because too many of us only come from our own standpoint, our own point of view. And I've learned that playing the victim through the scriptures does not keep me from what fire that I might still end up going through. Because the only way that we are to conduct ourselves is by the scripture and by how the Most High commanded us to be. And we do make mistakes, but we do our very best to correct them and move on. Because if we're stuck in being the victim, there is not going to be one fucking victim in that refiner's fire that Israel is going to have to be melted down in, most of us. But the other nations that continue to think that they're above us when they're beneath us, it ain't going to be pretty for them. Because just as the children of Israel had to pay for the sins, and they're still paying for the sins of their fathers, so will Edom. It doesn't matter if you weren't there during 70 AD or throughout this captivity. If Israel has to be punished for the sins of their fathers, oh yeah, everybody else is going to be held to pay the captain. Matthew 5:24, and that's facts. Matthew 5:24. Leave your gift. This is the NIV version. Leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. Back in 6th grade, I knew this girl named Teresa, and she was she still is a very sweet person. You know, to this day, she's still a really shy person, even though she has her own family, and you know, her husband is good to her and she's good to him. But when we were kids, she latched on to me for protection because she was being teased because of her weight, and she was really being treated bad. And for about a year, Brother Deshaun was there for her. She felt comfortable being around me. But eventually, you know, I let the popular kids that were treating her like shit convince me into doing the same. And one day they were beating her up, and I actually grabbed her hair. There's no excuse for being a kid. I never hit her or anything, but I was there and I did her harm. And the way she looked at me, the betrayal she felt, lived with me for about a decade. After I had graduated from boot camp, I went back home to visit family, and you know, I already had a car and I was missing my car. I was pissed because I had to catch the bus back home in Michigan, but I left my car in California. And you know, I was making my rounds to visit family. I was going around to eat good food because man, my aunts can throw down. But I was on the bus and we were in downtown, and I kept noticing somebody. I kept feeling like somebody was watching me, and this girl's name was Teresa. I looked over to my left, and there she was. This is almost 10 years later, well, over 10 years later, and I think we were in 6th grade. I can't remember, but no, we were just about to go into high school. Excuse me. I looked over, and there she was, and all of her pain that I witnessed came back, and all of what I did came back, and she looked at me with a look like she could just shoot lasers through her eyes. You know, we're both very young adults at this time, and I sat there and I thought about, you know, this whole situation and the pain in her eyes. I got off the bus at her stop, about 4 miles away from mine, And I said, Teresa. And she said, what do you want? And I said, you remember me, don't you? And she said, how can I forget? And her eyes lit up with tears. And then it really hit me. And, you know, I've never really been a type of bully. As I stated in one of my videos before, about 2 years ago, you know, I was myself bullied throughout my childhood, mainly for being black. And I told her, I says, I don't know how to fix this, but I'm just going to say this. I am so sorry for what I did to you, and I hope you could forgive me. And in the back of my mind, something said, wow, where did that come from? But as I watched, and this is the truth, I actually watched a ton of regret, a ton of pain, a ton of hatred fall off from her. And I told her, I says, well, maybe I'll see you later. You know, I'm just home visiting, and you know, I really do love you, and I am sorry, my friend. And I started to walk away, and I got about maybe 12 steps away, and I was getting ready to cross the street, and I looked both ways, and I looked back to my right where she was standing when I was talking to her, and she was still there. And she said, hey, Deshaun. And I stopped, and she walked up to me with tears in her eyes. She was crying. You know, this was a lot of pain that this girl had been living with for a long time. And she told me she loved me too. And she wrapped her arms around me and gave me a hug. And then she left. And when I was on another social media platform, I would hear from her every now and then, and she would send, she actually would post pictures of her family, her husband and her kids. And, you know, I, you know, commented on a couple of her pictures, and her husband told me thank you. And, you know, I tried to apologize again, but she came back and left me a message saying that, you know, we're good. You know, and I appreciate you, you know, helping me with what I've been struggling with all this time. And that was, that really made me feel good, you know, to be able to ask for forgiveness and to move on, to be a blessing to those that I've harmed. And the main way to be a blessing to those that any of us have ever harmed is to start treating ourselves good. Because a lot of us, you know, and I can speak for my people, because I fall under the curses just like every one of Israel. You know, we're beat down people. Our power has been taken from us. And, you know, for me, and I know for others, this captivity, even though the Most High continues to take care of us, it's not natural for us to be here. We are above all nations upon the earth, Israel. And although we are going to go back to our natural spot, our natural place, in the natural balance, someday soon, we know we're not supposed to be here, because this world was given into the hands of the wicked. Teresa is an Edomite. And just because I have woken up to the fact of who I am and who my people truly are, doesn't mean that we don't make amends to everybody. Because if we don't do that, even if they don't like them, even if they still want to hold on to some bullshit, you know, it's best for us to get it off of us, make it right as best we can for our part, and move on. You know, those of us on this channel have known that, you know, we've seen my experience, and we all have our own, where things just fall apart and they get retarded, especially if you don't put the Most High first. There are no victims in this world. Israel is still under the curses because of what our fathers did. And the Most High continues to punish us as a nation. But we're almost out of this hellacious punishment. We're about to go back into our full power. But we have that refiner's fire to deal with first. Because coming out of this captivity, we have to earn it. Every one of us. And it is a blessing to be alive. It is a blessing to feel at times so low that you feel like there's no hope. To feel so low that you feel like you can't do shit right. But the Most High will empty your cup, and He will fill it with substance. And although as a nation we still fight at times, the Most High is coming back to correct all of this shit. Substance, Israel. Humility is substance. And just because somebody's mad at you, don't mean that the Most High sees you as the way they do. And if we cannot take ownership for our own shit and show mercy and forgiveness, we'll find out how long we need to sit in that refiner's fire. Israel, if nobody told you that they loved you today, Brother Deshaun would like to say that I love each and every one of you. Hold true to yourselves. Never let anyone shame you into walking away from your principles. And continue to look in the mirror. And even if you don't like what you see, and even if the world doesn't like what they see in you, the Most High loves you, Israel. Shout out to my teacher and big brother's family. I pray that soon you all will be making videos again, and I hope all is well. Shalom.